Hey, it's me, Hannah. This weekend I am attending a Victorian beach party. That's right, we are history bounding at the beach and I couldn't be more excited. However, I just have 4 days to whip up a historical swimming costume. I am using a Victorian reproduction PDF pattern I found on Etsy, which was made from an original 1898 pattern from Harper's Bazaar. The pattern seller actually recommends that users don't buy the pattern unless they have a good amount of sewing experience. Because, and I quote, "The original pattern does not include seam allowances and gives only basic instructions for the garment construction." So I'm sure I will be absolutely golden. When trying to source fabric for this project, I definitely had to do some research. Victorians weren't just wearing spandex from what I understand. Rather, they often used a heavy wool or a mix of other similar materials like wool flannel and wool serge, flannel cotton, silk, and linen, among other materials as well. I decided to purchase some flannel cotton, and while it was fashionable to typically go with like blacks or grays or navies or even reds, I decided to go with a light orange color, as my friends and I are trying to put together a sort of rainbow look. I did find an article that cited ochre as a color often worn, and I think I could convince myself that this color kind of falls under that umbrella. I ordered 3 yards of this pinstriped cotton flannel and 3 yards of this herringbone. So let's hope that's enough.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Like I said, we have 4 days, so let's get to work.
I wasn't sure how I was going to finish the seams, so I went ahead and serged all of the edges of the pattern pieces before prepping the pieces for gathering and then constructing the dress by sewing the shoulder and side seams. Once I confirmed that the dress part would fit, I got to work on the sleeves. Since these pieces already had basting stitches for gathering, I sewed the sleeve seams, then created the lace cuffs by attaching some elastic with a zigzag stitch, which I then zigzag stitched to the bottoms of the gathered sleeves. I was honestly so happy with how adorable they turned out. Now the collar gave me some trouble. I should have just sewn the outside curve with right sides together, then focused on attaching it to the dress while encasing a few other details. More on that in a minute. We've hit a bit of a snafu. I've sewn this front fold piece, which is essentially just a tube of fabric that's sewn into the front seam of the dress. I've also noticed that the collar not only needs to encase the top of this fold piece, but also needs to encase the edges of this sort of modesty panel that still needs to be added. So I'm going to completely redo this front seam and then open up just, I think, the front bit of this collar to one, encase this tube, and also encase the seams of the sort of modesty panel that needs to be added. Kind of a big oops, but we'll keep going. Okay, so I got the fold flipped right side out, so feeling pretty good about that. And I went to add this white panel to this front area, but I just feel like it brings the neckline up too high to the point where I can't even pull the dress over my head. So I think I'm just going to drop it. I feel like the neckline as is already high enough to avoid any scandalizing, and there's also, if we place the collar at the right spot, there's a little pop of the rest of the fold coming up that I think actually looks kind of nice. Plus that panel is so stark white compared to the lace trim I have on the sleeves. So yeah, I think I'm just going to wrap up my night by finishing up the collar, and I will essentially have the top half of my swimming costume all ready to go. Even with this hiccup, I feel like it's going pretty well. Who can say where the road goes? I've already had to do a lot of like futzing and fiddling with the collar, so I'm just gonna do this off camera, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
The next day.
So I'm not like particularly happy with how this part turned out. It's not laying flat, and it's honestly, the whole thing is kind of giving nightgown a little bit. So I did what any normal sane person with a deadline would do. I started over, and now I have a totally separate swim costume I'm working on. I've maybe lost the thread a little bit in terms of our rainbow attempt, but luckily I'm working with some really cool people who will totally forgive that and just want to hang out on the beach in Victorian costumes like I do. I'm still working out a little bit of futzing here with the collar and the neckline. It's not clean. What I did on this piece was add a bow to try to cover up some of the cleanup, and so that's an option that I could pull here and just add a big bow here to clean up these corners. And then I'm obviously still thinking about what I'm gonna do with this white piece here. So instead of worrying about this for right now, I am going to pivot and get to work on the bloomers. I do believe I have enough fabric that matches the collar to make my own bloomers. So I'm gonna get back to the pattern pieces, make sure I have everything I need, and get to work sewing up the bloomers. So I'm glad I started by cutting out the bigger version of the bloomer pattern piece, because it took me longer than I am proud to admit to realize that you are supposed to cut each pant leg on the fold. One half of the fold, though, has to have this section removed. So I'm glad I figured that out, otherwise I would have wasted a lot of fabric trying in vain to make this work. Using a zigzag stitch, I added some elastic to the inside of the waist and cuffs of the bloomers. In retrospect, I would have preferred to have made a waist with ties. I'll keep that in mind for next time, though. And with some final details wrapped up, I was off to the beach. We just got back. It is so chilly outside. I think it's like 50 degrees, so maybe not the perfect beach day weather, but we persevered. Everybody was in great spirits, so I think we got some really good photos for sure. It was like a beautiful day to take photos. The lighting was amazing. Everybody's colors were popping. I was only lightly upset that I didn't get to bring orange to the kind of rainbow effect we had, but everybody had a nice pop of color, and that was so wonderful. Considering the collar of my first iteration got messed up and then essentially irreparably damaged from my sewing and picking and resewing and undoing and redoing, it's a shame, but considering how poorly that went, I'm very pleased with how she turned out. So I'm wearing a like one-piece thing underneath, but the elastic on the pants ended up being really lopsided, so they kind of lean to the left a little bit, which is kind of funny, but you know, you can't see it, so who cares? I could definitely practice working with elastic a little bit more, for sure. Overall, the finishing, I would say, just kind of across the entire project, isn't great. I would be a little more hesitant about wearing this into the water. We didn't get a chance to test it out just because it was so cold. Even if it had been warmer, I don't know that I would have gone in, just because I'm a little worried about the finishings on these. I didn't go through and serge all of the edges like I did in the first iteration, so I'll have to come back if I want to wear this again, which I think I will. Like I would love to do something like this again if I'm gonna wear it again, to test it in the water or to, you know, have another Victorian beach party with my friends. I would want to come back and finish up the seams. So we're gonna warm up and go get some dinner, and then tomorrow we are shooting pirates. So the pirate jacket and pirate hat that I made in my last two videos will make another appearance, so stick around for that. In the meantime, if you had as much fun as I did, it would mean the world to me if you would like and subscribe. And if you do, I will see you in 2 weeks for our next video. Take care.